and welcome to the Barry Foster Show, now on YouTube, originating from the Ridge Floor Studios in the City of Charm, beautiful downtown Avon Park. If you have any thoughts, ideas, or suggestions for our program, just drop us a line at thebarryfostershow@gmail.com or put them in the comments right below. People you'd like us to interview or perhaps topics you'd like us to talk about, whatever. We try to have a new show up each and every day, and we've got some special guests coming, so there may be some days we actually have two things up here. So please check on a regular basis and subscribe. I want to remind you that subscribing does not cost you a dime. You can just hit the subscribe button there. We're at this point in our lives at 160 subscribers, and we're on our way to 1,000. So we appreciate all the people who subscribed, and you can join our pages at the Barry Foster Show on Facebook and on Instagram. That also would be very helpful. Coming up, we have Tom Trento. We're going to be doing an interview with him. Also, Kaylee Tuck just went up yesterday with a really good program about what has happened with the budget, some things that occurred in the last legislative session, things that are going on today, and what she's got planned for the upcoming legislation. So that's really going to be a good program. And John Larsen in the studios with us today.
Good morning. Is this her last term, by the way?
No, she has one more. She has a term and a half.
Okay.
She's in the middle of her second term, or as they refer to it, the junior years. And then in 2027 and 28 will be her senior years.
Okay.
And then she's going to be large and in charge. Mm-hmm. So I asked her if there was some things that she had planned, and she does. It's if you have not heard the program, it's really a good program. And I want to take a moment to say congratulations to our friend Trent Ferguson, who is graduated from USF, and he's going to start his own sports podcast, and we're going to see if we can help him a little bit. We did an interview with him before. Speaking of Kaylee Tuck, she was talking about SB 56, which I had not heard about, which is weather modification. And even my friend Harry Havery, who he had her on his podcast. I heard him talking with her on his podcast. You're not allowed to do any spraying in the air that affects the weather. They were some of the citrus growers and some of the farmers were worried about, spraying for, bugs and stuff, doing crop spraying. They said, no, that's down on the ground. That's not up in the air. But Harry had talked about, and we've seen where we live, contrails. Mm-hmm. And it's one thing to watch a jet go over and leave that little white line in the sky, but it dissipates pretty quickly. Some of the stuff we've seen that is crisscrossed the skies by our house, that's up there for a long time.
You're talking about seeding?
Yeah, I don't know what they're doing up there.
Trying to generate rain?
I've heard that they're spraying aluminum, and aluminum has been linked to Alzheimer's disease. Mm-hmm. In fact, I saw this one guy that was talking about Mount Shasta, and the snow on Mount Shasta is now showing traces of aluminum. He says, how does that happen? How does it get way up there? And that's supposed to be pristine, mm-hmm. Like drilling down through the ice in Antarctica where there's not supposed to be any, it's pre-human being able to do anything of note, so it should be all very pure, and it's not. So I was glad to hear that the state of Florida is moving along with Donald Trump, trying to get things cleaned up,
Mm-hmm. Well, like I was telling you earlier when I was listening to the president doing a press conference on the way up, and it was specifically about the takeover of Washington, D.C.
Yes.
And his disgust, if you will, with the crime, which is off the chart, and with the homelessness and the actual just decay of the city of D.C. And the mayor, Muriel Bowser, who, if you remember her, as far as I'm concerned, she was one of the cohorts in the the J6 people, mm-hmm. because she refused to allow the National Guard into Washington, even though President Trump the day before requested National Guard troops in the city of D.C. and so on. So, but I think she has been, and I listened to her. She did a podcast yesterday, I think it was, and I watched it. She was on with a couple other people, and unfortunately, she sat there and said to the camera that the city is perfectly safe and I'm doing a good job of maintaining peace and tranquility, which is absolutely false. There 41 murders per 100,000 residents in Washington, D.C., which is the highest in the world.
In the world?
You look, Trump was rattling off Colombia, okay, the drug capital of the world, if you will. The murder rate there is less than it is in Washington, D.C., at 41 per 100,000.
It's even more than Chicago?
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yes. So and it's gotten worse because what's happening here lately, you're getting teenagers. I mean, you're talking 13, 14, 15-year-old kids running around with guns, hijacking cars, and just murdering people or shooting people or robbing people. And it's gotten totally out of control. And the city, they have no cash bail in D.C. Trump I'm eliminating the no cash bail immediately. But they went ahead years ago and enacted, like a lot of them, no cash bail. So you commit a crime, judge says, you're a bad boy, don't do it again, I don't want to see you again, and they walk out the door.
You got to tell me, is this a Democrat-run city?
It is absolutely, positively 100% Democrat-run, yes.
And Washington is like the best of times, the worst of times. You have places like Fairfax, Virginia, which is, I think, the richest county in the United States, mm-hmm. because that's where all the bureaucrats and the high-paid staff live. Right. And then you have the city proper, where there are people who are, to say they're dirt poor is kind of understating the case a bit.
Well, I think the thing that really, and now Trump talked about this when he was running, by the way. He did say that he was going to take over or redo D.C. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't a hidden secret. And I think what happened, in my opinion, the crowning blow for that, to me, was when the Doge guy got beat up because he interrupted a carjacking.
The guy who referred to himself as Big Balls.
Big Balls, right? Yes. And he's not a big guy. I don't know if you saw his picture. He's a slender little dude.
They showed this. They showed this picture of these kids, and they kind of look like the college brain ball team. Yeah, the brain. They used to be on Sunday afternoon TV. Mm-hmm. You know,
right.
Brain Bowl. And this kid is. He's a very smart kid, but he's not the most strapping kid in the room.
He was a small kid, and of course, unfortunately, when he interrupted and saved this woman because her car was being carjacked.
Yes.
And no telling what would have happened to her. He interrupted that. All right, jumped in the middle of it, and these three, I think there were three of them, young.
They were teenage kids,
yeah.
but don't be misled. They could, with three of them, number one, and number two, they're bigger than he is, and they beat the snot out of him.
Right, they did, and he was in pretty rough shape.
Yes.
And I think when Trump saw that, I think that was the straw that broke the camel's back for him. Enough is enough, because he rattled off about 4 or 5 instances. A congressman got his car jacked, from him. One of the interns got shot and killed in D.C., and he rattled off about 4 or 5 of these people that were victims of these young thugs, primarily in the city of D.C. And he said, it's not safe. The streets are not safe. And then on top of that, you've got homelessness and just shanty towns all over the place. We're getting rid of all that. But he's going to say,
there you go.
He said today that he's putting 1,000 National Guard troops in D.C., plus I think he's got 200 federal law enforcement people in there already, and so on. So I think they're going to go in, and there's going to be a lot of weeping and wailing and gnashing of teeth. The mayor's going to be all upset because you're usurping my power. But I'm sorry, girl, you didn't do the job. Look at the numbers. Numbers don't lie. The numbers say that you're totally out of control with crime, and you're not doing anything to make it better.
And Washington, D.C., in addition to being the seat of power for the entire country, it's a tourist town. I mean, you have people coming in to see the Washington Monument, the Jefferson Monument, the Lincoln Memorial, the reflecting pool, the museums that they have up there. I mean, it is, in addition to, by the way, they have, in case you're planning, they've suspended the virtual tours of the White House because they're building the new ballroom. We'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah, he mentioned that today, too.
But at any rate, it is a town where a lot of people are coming from all over the United States.
All over the world.
All over the world.
Yes.
To see, and Donald Trump wants to make sure if you're walking, whether it's morning, noon, or night, if you're walking on the streets, you have some reasonable expectation you're going to be safe.
Right. And he was pretty blunt this morning. He said, I don't care. He said, you want to start fighting us? He said, bring it on. He said, we're going to take care of you in short order. And he said, I'm telling these people, you do whatever you got to do to get the crime under control. So that's a pretty open statement.
And
right
we've had Sheriff Blackman talk about this, and other sheriffs and other law enforcement people have come to the Tea Party to speak. Mm-hmm. And the one thing they will tell you is that thieves, criminals are really looking for targets of opportunity. Like if you lock your car at night and they go up and they pull on the handle and there's nothing there, and you look inside, there's nothing that looks like it's worth stealing, they'll leave it alone. Mm-hmm. If they push the button, well, I don't know if they push the button anymore, they pull the handle and the door pops open, they're going to get in there and look in the glove box. They're going to see what's there.
Yep.
You know, or if you're not guarding your store, you know, if it looks, if they can stick something in their pocket and walk, they'll do it. The big box stores have cameras everywhere. You stick something in your pocket, you may get out the door, but they're going to knock on your door.
Oh, absolutely.
So I think that when Donald Trump comes in and they show an increased law enforcement presence and say, not only are you going to jail, but you're going to stay in jail, I think the criminals, like a lot of illegal people, will self-deport to a place where it's going to be easier.
Oh, yeah. I think you're going to see, like I said, in the beginning, there's going to be a lot of weeping and wailing. All the politicians and our Democrats in D.C., they're going to jump up and down and scream and holler that Trump is an authoritarian, you know, he's Hitler, he's all these bad things. But guess what? When you got a murder rate of 41 per 100,000, and that's the highest in the world, you've got a severe, severe problem with crime.
Well, the Democrats have painted themselves into a very bad corner, that they have gotten TikTok influencers, they've gotten people in the hood, people who are just not qualified to be congressional people, and who oppose law and order. They're opposing everything that America stands for. Is there any really astonishment that their approval rate is at 9%?
No,
you know?
and there was another statistic I was watching, Patrick Ben-David this morning, which is another podcast with four guys, and they're very big and whatnot. And they were talking about and showed the film clips. I saw this yesterday of three young, and I'm talking less than probably 10 years old, three of them, three minority young boys, probably 10, 11 years old, walked into I think it was a Walgreens, all right, I'm pretty sure, and they had filled up a bag of stuff that they were going to steal. But they had this mechanism to lock the doors.
Yes.
And these little boys, stood there, and I can't tell you the kind of things they said to the employees about opening up the door so they could get out with their loot. Okay?
There was a lot of blankety blanks in there.
Oh my gosh!
I saw this, and this is a new method that they have that they lock the doors until law enforcement arrives, and then they unlock the doors and law enforcement comes in. And these young kids, this is the behavior they'd seen their older peers doing.
Yes.
So they were going to go ahead and do it, and they'd filled out the stuff, and you can't, and we're not going to use that language, even though on the internet you can use any kind of language you want, but they were telling them that they had better do this and they had better do that, and they just kept telling them, well, don't worry, law enforcement's going to be there. Now, when I was young, and probably when you were young, we were advised that as a child, when you went into the children's criminal system, you got a lot of slack. They cut you a lot of slack. And they told us stories about kids who, up until the time they were 18, were bad actors. When they got to be 18 and the rules changed, they were astonished. They were absolutely astonished at, oh, you mean I'm actually going to go to jail? I mean, all these bad things. Yes, actually, it's going to happen to you now. So what happens to these kids, I don't know. But I think that at some point, this is where, again, Donald Trump and law and order is going to prevail, and they're going to say, you cannot engage in this kind of behavior. I don't know if the twig is bent, and that's the way the tree's going to grow.
I mean, it's, and I go back to, and I've said this many, many times, but over the years, to me, that when you see something like this, there's one solution to that, but that was a total breakdown in the family structure.
Yes.
Either there was probably no father, okay,
Oh, yes.
probably no father involved,
You're
okay,
going to bump it again there.
and
It's
so
right
on.
there. Yeah.
So, that's part of the equation. But then, of course, the father has to be an upstanding person. I mean, just because anybody can become a father, all right? Like
Biologically.
right? Anybody can become a mother, all right? A
Biologically.
woman. That's right. But I mean, how are those children being raised? And if they're not being raised with any degree of discipline, orderliness, courtesy, whatever, you want to put on it. If they don't go to Sunday school, they don't go to church, they have no God or Christ in their life, then you're going to end up with children that are like this, and they're going to be in a juvenile system. And then if they graduate from there, they'll be into the adult system.
And we can trace this back to Lyndon Baines Johnson.
Yes.
And the generations now that have come through where if there's a father in the household, then they don't get the money. So there's no father. And we have seen now where women are proud of having X number of children by an equal number of different fathers, and they have effectively destroyed the black family structure. I don't know what it's going to take to reinstate that. So Ben Johnson, Thomas Sowell, there are people who they might listen to more because he reflects who they are, but you're going to need those kinds of people in there, and it will take, I think, an equal number of generations. It'll take an equal number of generations to undo this and to get father figures back in there. And I don't know, it was government interference that caused it. I don't know if government interference can fix it.
Well, the Great Society is what was part of the downfall. And then, of course, when you legalized abortion, I know they've redone it, but when you legalized abortion, to me, that was one of the big things. You took the Bible out of schools. That's a big thing. Although I see that Texas now is trying to pass through law that will reinstate the Bible in the school system in Texas.
Here in Florida, you can have Bibles in school. There was a young man who carried his Bible every day to school, and he was a kid, so periodically he would forget it. And the teacher would lift it up and say, but the kids all knew, that's so-and-so's, that's Billy Bob's Bible,
right.
And we'll get it back to him, because he just forgot it. In the libraries of the school systems, I think my wife, who was a librarian, says there's not only Bibles, there's Korans, there's Torahs, there's all kinds of religious literature that is in there, because the kids say, well, that's against the law. No, it's not. But we need to have moral behavior. And we have seen Hollywood has glorified non-moral behavior. Television glorified non-moral behavior.
Music.
Music. Oh my goodness.
Yes.
And it's going to take people championing moral behavior to make it something that children aspire to.
Well, the other thing that's going to have to be, and this is what I think will happen with D.C., the thing that initially has to happen is you have to stop the bad behavior, which means you're going to have discipline. Now, if that means that the younger kids are going to have to be punished for what they do, I mean, if you're a 13-year-old and shoot and kill somebody, what's the difference between you and a 43-year-old doing the same thing? Yeah. To me, it is a mortal crime.
By the way, thank you, Amtrak.
Yep.
They're on time again. No show would be complete if Amtrak didn't come through.
No, absolutely.
But yeah, you're exactly right. And they say, well, they're too young to punish for that kind of thing. No. But the thing, I don't know about you, when I went to school, when we were in elementary school, you could get licks from the principal for bad behavior. I did. The statute of limitations expired. I did get licks for something, by the way, I didn't think was my fault. I was just in the midst of a bunch of guys who had jumped in a pile. And I was one of the ones they yanked out.
Our discipline was the football coach, Paul Gall. I remember him to this day. All right, I'm sure he's up in heaven now. But the thing of it is, I mean, he was the discipline. Okay, I mean, if you got out of line, going through the halls from one class to the other, believe me, you were put up against the lockers with a hand around your throat. Okay, literally, I'm not kidding. And I mean, you understood that discipline very quickly, and you didn't do it again.
In one of my classes, Mr. DeZuro who didn't put up with much in his class, American history class. He took Lester Hastings and threw him out and threw him against the locker here with a great bang. And Lester was a big guy, but he did not resist. John Rada, who was causing problems, he made him sit in the wastebasket. You know, he said, because you're trash.
Yep.
You know, he
Yep.
said, and you're trash. And he was blushing. He was laughing, but he was blushing furiously. And so it was things like that. And as far as I know, he was never hauled up for child abuse or anything like that. But you learned, to quote my wife, there's a portion of life which is sit down and shut up and pay attention. And we all need to have that kind, and adults, whether you are mom and dad, aunt and uncle, grandma and grandpa, you know, or even trusted friends of dad or mom, say, you know, you cannot do that.
Right.
You know, there are certain behavioral norms that we expect, and you'll either behave or you'll pay the consequences.
Well, discipline is a big thing, and the sooner you start learning a degree of discipline, even when you're a small infant, okay, you will learn quickly, and you have it. I think everybody is born with an innate sense of right and wrong.
Yes.
You're born with a sense of right and wrong. However, the people that are in your home, all right, your parents, okay, your siblings, what are aunts, uncles, grandparents, depending on their character will determine how you start out in life. You can change. You can definitely change. But if you're surrounded by people that are not really good people, not moral people, or what, then that's what you pick up on. That's what you learn. That's how you're going to grow up.
Kids know what's fair. They know what's right and what's
yes,
not right.
Right.
And we have to begin to say, you know, life is not fair. Not everything is equal. But, you know, there are situations where you should all have an equal chance. The starting line is here. The finishing line is there. Everybody goes. You may not be but you all run under the same rules.
Right.
And it's something that, as we get older, we have to emboss on our children or grandchildren, in some cases great-grandchildren. You know, say if you want this way of life, and there's a normalcy bias. We've talked about this. People seem to think that life in the United States is like it is all over the world, and it's not.
No.
It's not. There are a lot of people who lives under kings and queens and under despots and things where they cannot do anything. And so if America, I think it was Daniel Webster that said this form of government is made for a moral people. And if we're not a moral people, then, and I think that's one of the things that, and for a long time, the communists have been trying to destroy this country, and destroying the morality of this country was a good way to do it.
I'm getting a sense. Now, I know it's small, and I know the country is certainly divided at this point, okay, and there are so many, the Democrat people, if you will, I mean, they have gone off the rail, because now they have gone what I call suicidal. I mean, you're bringing in this communism, socialism, radical communism, socialism across the country. And you've got it in a number of parts around the country. It's not just, everybody's talking about Mondami in New York. Okay, fine. You've got one very similar in Minneapolis who's running. And more than likely, he's going to win, unfortunately. But it's more than likely he's going to win. Same thing they're saying about Mondami. There's Cuomo he's got so much baggage of what he did during COVID, how many people that he allowed to die because of COVID. I don't think he stands a chance. I like Swalwell, but unfortunately he's the only registered Republican that's running, but he doesn't have the money. He does not have the financial backing, and so on. So we'll see what happens.
Eric Swalwell, head of the Guardian Angels.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Right, and he's been there for, all my whole
decades,
life.
yes. A long time.
But he's been a great civil servant for the city of New York. He's been a spokesperson for New York and so on. But, I mean, unfortunately...
It's right there on the connection. Just tap it again. There you go. There we go. And we're going to fix that before the next program.
I try not to touch that.
We're going to fix that before the next program. But the thing is, how far down in the snake pit do they have to go?
That's it. I mean, you don't know.
And so they, before, places like California, places that have had this issue occur, they have to get so far down, and then the federal government come and buoy them up. They're not going to have that luxury now, you know.
Right.
So we're going to have to wait for New York. There we go. We have to wait for and see how far down, because the good New Yorkers, the money people with money, they're leaving.
I was watching this morning, again, Patrick Ben David and his podcast with his three guys and so on. And they were talking about there's 123 billionaires in New York City that live there,
Really?
have their business there, 123. He said, I will guarantee you that at least half of those, if Madami gets in and starts enacting all these crazy taxation things and no police and all that, you're going to see half of those leave, which he said would be like let's say 60 billionaires would leave New York City. All right, the tax money that they're going to lose when those 60 people leave, let alone anybody else, will be phenomenal to the bottom line of New York.
The smart ones are leaving now. Like we have a dear friend. I don't know if I can mention her name on the air, but she is a much older lady than either you or I, and her father, back in the 20s and 30s, saw what was coming in Germany and took his family and moved them out of Germany and came to the United States, and they escaped the Holocaust. I think that there's some of these, it would not surprise me, these guys didn't get rich by accident.
No.
A lot of these guys are already kind of shipping the money out, getting things ready, because they can see what's happening. So when they leave, there won't be anything left for because Limbaugh had to fight like heck back in the 1990s to get out.
He could not stay overnight in New York. If he did, they taxed the devil out of him. So anything he did in New York, he flew in, flew out. He did not stay.
Hannity's the same way.
Well, Hannity's permanently moved now to Texas, to Florida.
They these guys, I don't care where their political allegiance lie, but I know that they want to keep their money. And so you're going to see, and New York is, they're having the death rattle now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they're in serious trouble. And this guy, assuming that he manages like he says he will, all right, you're going to see New York go off the cliff, because anybody of any consequence is going to leave because of the financial suicide that's going to happen there. And the crime in that, if you think it's bad now in New York, and he defunds the police or takes the police out and puts in a social worker, oh my God, just stand back, because it's going to be bullets flying.
I would, had I been in New York, I went to New York 3 times, and each time I vowed I would never go back. This is in the 1980s. Yeah, in the 70s or 80s, and the last time I went, and I've never gone back, and I wouldn't go back again.
No, I was there in the 80s also. We were there for like 3 or 4 days. We went to some kind of an engineering conference there in New York, and just to get a flavor of it. But it was crazy. It was crazy. I'll say that.
And we've heard from President Trump now that he's called for a new census. Illegal immigrants will not be counted.
Right.
And so I think that's going to change a lot of the makeup of Congress. And as that changes, you may see the timbre of the country change. I mean, people, we both experienced this. They don't care until it directly affects them.
Amen.
And a bunch of New Yorkers are going to go, this now is directly affecting us. We're going to have to fix this.
Yep.
And I don't know how far down it's going to have to go before that happens.
Well, like I say, if this guy gets in, and the guy in Minnesota gets in, looks like he will. But I mean, you cannot believe Tim Walz. My God, if he and Kamala Harris would have been elected, Tim Walz, if you've watched any of the corruption that's going on in Minnesota, it is off the chart. You're talking hundreds of millions and billions of dollars.
Who would have thought Minnesota, really? But I saw this great. I just discovered this guy. His name is Benny Johnson, and he just did this expose on Jasmine Crockett. And I sat. It runs about 5 minutes or so, but it's riveting, because I did not know that Jasmine Crockett did not grow up in Texas. She grew up in Missouri, and in fact, she was in St. Louis in what he describes as the Republican suburbs of St. Louis, which are these 2-story brownstones, manicured lawns, and it is a life of privilege that she grew up. And then she went to this, she went to this school called the Mary Institute, which is $35,000 a year to go to this school. And she went to this school until she graduated. And then she graduated and went to a university in Tennessee called the Rhodes Institute. And that's $70,000 a year to go. And the reason you go to the Rhodes Institute is to position you for a life of high-end service, medical, legal, whatever. So then she went to Houston and was went and became an attorney. Mm-hmm. And they showed it at the Rhodes Institute, or maybe it was the Mary Institute. Anyway, she learned to play clarinet on this hill under an apple tree that had apples growing. I mean, it's pristine. It's beautiful. It's high end. It's got Wimbledon class tennis. It's got lacrosse. It's got a natatorium or an aquatic center that's just astonishing. And they showed some of the early interviews, and her English is more like yours and mine. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now she represents Texas, South Dallas. I think it's South Dallas. And her district looks much like Maxine Waters' district, where there's poop on the streets.
I think her district is one of those that's under fire for redistricting.
It could be.
I'm pretty sure it is.
And she sounds now, as Mr. Johnson describes it, as a hood rat.
Oh yeah.
When she talks, she's got all this street lingo that she uses now.
Yep.
But when she was an attorney, she spoke much more, as a friend of mine would call it, American English. Mm-hmm. And they said that everything about her is false. Everything about her is fake, and people just don't know this stuff. And she's portrayed as somebody who clawed her way up out of the hood, and nothing could be further from the truth.
Right. And
you see more and more and more of this as they unpack this stuff. Will her constituents ever find out about this? Probably not.
Well, unless her district is done away with or restructured or whatever, I don't know. We'll see what happens with this whole thing. It's supposed to come to a head, I think, within the next day or two, because Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas, got Kash Patel involved with the FBI. And I think FBI is the one that's going after these rogue Democrat Congress people from Texas. Mm-hmm. So it'll be interesting to see if this now becomes some kind of a federal issue. It's not like it's dealing with just Greg Abbott.
Well, I remember when I was growing up that if you committed a crime and you stayed in your state, that's the state's problem. But the FBI got called in when they had interstate flight to avoid prosecution. Okay? All of a sudden, well, that's a federal thing now. Mm-hmm. And these guys very publicly went where? To Chicago. Mm-hmm. Last I checked, Chicago's not in Texas.
Nope. No, long ways away. As a matter of fact, one of the other things they did was they're now withholding their paychecks.
Yes, I saw that.
It used to be automatic deposit, but the governor said, no, we've got your money here, but you're not going to get it till you come back. Mm-hmm. So Pritzker, who's worth $10 gazillion, I think his family owns the Hilton Fortune or whatever, all right, one of the big chains, and Ramada, whatever it was, and so on. So he's got money, so it doesn't matter to him. He'll just throw money at them as long as they need it.
Well, we'll see how that unpacks.
Right.
And it is, for the folks who don't know, there was going to be a vote on redistricting. The Democrats had enough to not allow them to have a quorum.
Right.
I think there's 60 of them. And so they left, all but one guy, mm-hmm. but most of them left. And they didn't have a quorum. And so the governor said, you've left to disrupt our proceedings, so now you're guilty of a crime, and they're going, and so we'll see how this plays out.
Right.
Because Texas is one of the states that they're trying to turn blue, but if the census comes through and they don't count illegals, Texas will stay red.
Yep.
So,
well, and the thing of it is, even though they had supposedly, illegals illegals will be registered to vote, but won't vote. Give me a break. Give me a break.
We've got it. Yeah.
Why would you go through all of that trouble and then say, "Oh no, you can't vote now"?
Judicial Watch is now showing that they are voting.
Right.
They are voting.
And so on. We know that, and then they try and say, "Well, it's only a local election, so it doesn't matter." Oh. If you're voted into office via illegal voters, all right, it doesn't matter. They're illegal voters.
It does matter. It does matter.
Absolutely.
Well, listen, we're out of time for today, but there's always tomorrow, okay? You've been listening to the latest edition of the Barry Foster Show, recorded at the Ridge Floor Studios located in the City of Charm, beautiful downtown Avon Park. If you have any thoughts, ideas, or suggestions for the program, you can just put them in the comments below. We appreciate everybody who's subscribed, 160 subscribers. And the more you comment, more we can answer, and the more the algorithm will share this around, okay? Check out this YouTube page, The Barry Foster Show Daily. We'll be putting up new programming and maybe have some bonus episodes, okay? And subscribe to the YouTube page. Join the other 160 people and more, growing every day, and join The Barry Foster Show on Facebook and on Instagram. As we continue to look for truth, justice, and the American way, Barry Foster and John Larsen, and we'll see you next time.